All right, good morning, everyone. Good morning. And now we'll begin the day, as usual, with giving charity. I have this new camera over here, so it's not of the best quality, but it's a camera. Here we go. Ready? Charity box. Give charity. Don't be stingy. Don't be stingy, not with your feelings or with your words or with your deeds. Say a good word to people. Do a good deed for someone. Think good thoughts about people. Don't be stingy. Think good thoughts. So now at least we'll give charity, physical charity, nothing like actually deed. Charity saves from all the bad things in the world and brings all the good things in the world. Charity. All right, let's go and learn Torah. All right. As you remember yesterday, we're talking here about Yom Kippur. We're talking about the holiday of Yom Kippur and how it is, excuse me, that Yom Kippur is a holiday where it's called a double Shabbat. Shabbat Shabbaton. Shabbat Shabbaton, a double Shabbat. And the Rebbe explains what a Shabbat. Shabbat means to return. So everything returns back to the creator who's creating it. Everything returns back, and even more to the reason for creation. And the Jewish people, they're attached to this reason of creation. They're attached to the essence of the creator. And this is expressed in love. Every Jew has a natural love for God, which is, for the most part, concealed. Once in a while, in situations, desperate situations where a Jew is like pressed to the wall to either deny his Judaism or to die, is there are cases where rather than deny his Judaism, a Jew is willing to die. That was the way it was in a blatant way, in like the Inquisition and all these other. So Jews have always died for the truth. In other words, rather than, and we're talking about not religious Jews, all of a sudden it just wakes up inside of them some sort of an insane loyalty.
Okay, but for the ninth, you should just know you're always welcome. We always have a meal as long as.
Forgot, what's that? Okay, anyway. And so in loyalty to God, everybody has it. And this loyalty is expressed in not just, dry, you say, they call it, I'm forgetting words, patriotism or religious fervor or something like that. It's love. It's a deep, deep love for God. That it's so deep that a person doesn't care anything about himself. But this is very rare. On the other hand, this is the essence of what a Jew is. And the Rebbe said, what prevents this from being revealed? This is one thing Moshiach will reveal. This is sort of like the Moshiach inside of every Jew, this love of God. And what prevents this from being revealed is the transgressions that we do. When we do things that God prohibits, we said, and that covers over our ability to connect with our true selves. Remember, that's what we said before. So let's see if we can get this a little bit bigger over here. Here we go. 1 minute. 1 moment. Yeah. All right. So we said the positive commandments, they hint at a lower aspect of godliness than the prohibitions. In the Torah, there are what's called 613 commandments. 365 of them are prohibitions. A lot of these commandments depend on the temple, so they're not here. I read someplace that now there is only 270 commandments. I need Yeshana Balibi Air. 270 commandments that are relevant now, today. So a great portion of these commandments depend on the time of the temple or the time when all the Jews are together in Israel and there's a temple, like the Jubilee, the Yuvel. In any case, when Jews transgress, so that has a negative effect on the whole entire world, beginning with that Jew himself. So there's two ways of doing transgressing what's called a positive commandment. God said you should do something and you don't do it, like eating matzah on Passover, we said before. or putting on tefillin or saying Shema Yisrael twice a day. And then there's things that God prohibits. And there the way to do a sin is to do what God said not to do. To transgress a prohibition. So God said not to eat pork, and he eats pork. God says not to steal, and he steals. God says not to lie, and he lies. God says not to worship idols, he worships idols. So that has a much deeper effect on the soul. Has a deeper effect on the soul. So let's see if we can get over here. Here we go. Let me see if we can get up to where we were yesterday. Oh. Moshiach, which is not the case when a person transgresses on a negative commandment, on a prohibition. Shebagam umana, that he blemishes and he prevents the light of godliness, this arousal from above. Remember, we talked about the fire on the altar that comes from above, the fire in the altar of our soul, of our heart, that comes from above. It prevents it from coming down. Even if you do everything you can to make the fire from below, and the Rebbe explained this in great detail, which entails thinking about God, contemplating if God really does exist or if he doesn't exist. And if he does exist, why don't I feel God? And where is God? How can I connect to God? And God really took us out of Egypt. God really cares about me. God really loves me. God really provides for me. You start thinking about this, and that arouses a love. But that's what's called the lower love. That's called the fire that we bring. That we bring by means of our contemplation and meditation and even logic. Thinking about what God is, reading the books, thinking about godliness. But the natural love, which is inherent in the soul of every Jew, it can't be aroused by thinking or logic. It's above logic. It makes no sense. What a Jew is makes no sense. The real reason that a Jew should be doing the commandments, putting on tefillin, is because God said so. It makes no sense. There's also a lot of logical reasons, excuse me, Kabbalistic reasons. But all those are not Jewish reasons. Just the basic idea that the Jews are God's chosen people and the Jews are different from everybody else, that makes no sense. That makes no sense whatsoever. You want to tell me that because God chose Abraham 4,000 years ago, so I'm something special. And those Jews, they're the ones that received the Torah. And that God gave the land of Israel to all the Jews. I mean, you see something very interesting, very, very interesting. I mean, now in the days of the Moshiach, you see that there's this amazing, how do you say, the concentration of powers, of everybody's powers and everybody's opinions and everything on the land of Israel. Who does it belong to? The land of Israel. And they're all arguing, and Israel puts its people there, and they have this argument and that argument. No, you think that this is the easiest argument in the world for the Jews to win. I mean, who are these people, the Hamas people? Who are these people? They're people that are pure murderers. They have never in their history ever done anything positive, ever. And they're not planning to do anything positive in the future. And they're beloved by the United Nations and by the people of Gaza. The people, now that they're losing, so the people in Gaza say that they're not, they don't like them. But it's not so. Oh, that's not my point. My point is, what are the Jews are not stupid people. And the Israelis, they've got a lot of very intelligent people, especially the people that are the spokesman for Israel. They know how to speak. Right? And none of them say, the land of Israel is ours because God gave it to us. None of them say it. And the most obvious thing to say. It's the most obvious argument we've got. These people are not God's people. They don't care about God. They don't care about the God of Israel. The God of Israel is the creator. These people are pure destroyers. God promised this land to us through Abraham. God. Talk about God. Talk about the creator. Talk about the God of Israel. God took us out of Egypt. No. The spokesman for the country, for the state of Israel, they got nothing to say. It's that we didn't start it, they started it, and we have to understand. And sometimes they throw the Holocaust, say the real reason. Say what's obvious. So the answer is that no, that the connection between the Jews and God, on one hand, it's the most obvious thing in the world because you see that the Jews are just not a normal nation. On the other hand, so why don't any of the Jews say it? Why don't the people in Israel, why don't they say it? So the answer is because it's concealed. And it's concealed very deep. And it's the most practical, real, dynamic, true how do you call it? Thing in the world. Nothing is more real than that. The most real thing there is in the world is the love of every Jew to God and the love of God to every Jew. That's the most. Without that, nothing is real. Nothing is real in the world. That's the only real thing there is in the world, is the love of the Jews to God and the love of God to the Jews. And from that comes out that God loves everybody because he's creating everybody and that everyone can be taught to appreciate God. And so now the Rebbe is trying to bring this love out inside of us. We're Jews, right? We're learning this. How do we bring the love out? So the Rebbe says, listen, it's already there. All we have to do basically is just remove what's concealing it. It's like a person is put into a room with with food and drink and money, and he's starving and he's hungry and he's thirsty and he's poor. He's poor. He doesn't see. Why doesn't he see? Because he has dirty glasses on. You put on a pair of glasses and they're dirty. They're really dirty, and there's covering over with the same thing. Every time a person, a Jew, goes against what it says in the Torah, even if it's unintentional, so it dirties his glasses of his soul. He can't see this amazing love of God for us and the attachment of every Jew to God. He can't see his attachment to God. He can't see his attachment to the truth. He can't see reality. That's the point. The Rebbe wants to make us see reality. Reality is not going to heaven. Just when a person goes to heaven, then the world doesn't confuse him anymore. So he can see the truth, but the truth is not found in heaven. The truth is found in doing the commandments in this world. In heaven, you understand things. In this world, you do what's good. You can't understand it. It's love that's above understanding. It says that the pleasures in heaven are pleasures of understanding. You understand what God is. You understand how good God is. You understand. So the heaven is in a way, it's limited to the comprehension, the understanding of the soul, the bina of the soul, even the chachma of the soul. But in this world, doing Torah mitzvahs is pure love, pure pleasure of God. God is getting pleasure from us. And we partake of that pleasure somehow or other. But it's a totally different pleasure than any physical pleasure we could possibly have. Even the pleasures of heaven, absolutely incomprehensible. That's what the Rebbe is saying. How if a person did transgress the positive commandments, he didn't put on tefillin, he didn't do this. So the positive commandments, that's sort of like a river. They bring blessing into the world. And if you didn't do the positive commandments, so you didn't bring the blessing. So you can just dig deeper into the source and it brings out more water. So it fills up the lacking of blessings that weren't brought by you doing the positive commandments. But if a person transgresses the negative commandments, so that conceals over this infinite love that exists already in our soul, the infinite truth which is there inside of our soul, the love that God has for us and for the whole world. But we have to start from ourselves. So he says, that's the thing of Yom Kippur. Oh, so here we go. Let's see. Here we go. So that's why it says that if it says in the Mishnah that if a person transgresses in Yoma, it says if a person transgresses on a positive commandment, in positive commandments, all the positive commandments, and he repents and he regrets it, and he makes a resolution from now on, I'm going to put it on. So it says lo zaj misham, he doesn't move from there. In other words, immediately he gets forgiven. Why? Because when he does tshuva, this arouses the arousal of tshuva that he does, the fact that he's returning back to his source, this helps la'aliv nafshu to arouse, to, and they say, to fire up his soul with an arousal from below. She'abad, the fire that he lost in his sins. I gave the example of a river of water, but it's the same thing. That's what it means. Lo zaz misham. He doesn't even move from there. You transgressed positive commandments. You were supposed to do things and you didn't do them. Right? You were supposed to put a mezuzah on your door in your house. You didn't do it. You were supposed to put tzitzis on your garment. You didn't do it. You refused to do it. And all of a sudden you make your mind, well, I made a mistake. I'm going to do it. I'm going to make God my king. God, you're going to be the king. I'm going to do what you want. As soon as you decide that you regret the positive commandments that you did not do, so therefore you remain who you are and you fixed up what you sinned. Like we said before, that every day is called like a ladder that touches the ground. And every commandment you do, those are the angels that go up the ladder. The angels, those are the commandments. Remember learning that before? The angels go up first. It says Yaakov, Jacob saw a ladder, and the angels were going up first and then coming down. It says the angels, those are the commandments that he did. In the time of Jacob, he did the commandments. This was before the Torah, so he simulated the commandments in various ways. It explains in Midrash what he did. This, the sticks that he put in front of the sheep, it says over that was like tefillin. So he saw how it was that when you do a commandment in the world, then that elevates to the goes up. Those are the angels that go up. And we said that's the ladder of prayer. What really raises them up is the prayers that we make, that are love to God, that we arouse in our heart. And therefore, by means of prayer, with intention, with tshuva, this fixes the positive commandments, elevates them, which is not the case if a person transgresses the negative commandments, shipagam, that he blemished, and he prevented the light of God, the godly light, an arousal from above. That's the fire that comes from above. He prevented it from coming. Right? It's like having dirty glasses. You can't see you can't receive any light. You can't receive sha'af im yor, that even if a person arouses himself with a tremendous arousal, and he says, wow, do I regret that I did not eat? I'm sorry, I regret that I worshipped idols. I transgressed. I did something that God prohibits. The positive commandments, I just refrained from doing what I remained inactive. I did not do what God wants. So that is not as big a blemish on your soul as if I did do actively what God prohibits. So therefore, then also from below, there won't. Then that prohibits. It makes a barrier between this upper love of God, kimana ora, because you stop the light from coming in. Therefore, tshuva, it does not remove the sin. Tshuva just removes the punishment. And Yom Kippur, when the day of Yom Kippur comes, that brings total forgiveness. Because the day of Yom Kippur, that brings forgiveness, the day of Yom Kippur. And if we remember, we learned that in the speech of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, though we just finished learning. Why? Because the connection between God and the Jews, and that's what we learned over here also, is an essential connection, an essential deep connection which is above any sin. And that's what it says in the Torah. It says, you will be forgiven by God. Lifnei Hashem titaru. It says that before God, you will be refined, purified. So the simple meaning is that if you did sins, so on Yom Kippur, you will be forgiven before God. You're standing before God like standing in front of a king. But here he says, no, before God means you stand before, higher than the name of God. There is aroused an inner level of God, which is higher than any name, which is even higher than the level of Yudke, the first two letters of God's name. Remember, if a person does a sin, transgresses a prohibition, so that what he says blemishes the first two letters of God's name. That's how we started this paragraph. So we have to find something that's above the first two letters of God's name. So he says very simple. The letters of God's name, Yud Kei Vav Kei, that's basically the Torah. The positive commandments are represented by the Vav Hey of God, and the Yud Hey, that represents the the negative commandments, the prohibitions. And if you transgressed in a negative commandment, a prohibition, so you blemish this inner, higher aspect of God. But if you do tshuva, and then there's Yom Kippur, remember we learned according to Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, in the speech of the Rebbe, he said you don't even have to do tshuva. He said on that day itself of Yom Kippur arouses a level which is above any of the names of God, Lifnei Hashem. It's above the name letters Yud-Kei and above the letters Vav-Hey. Then God elevates the sins, the overall pesha, and he ignores any transgressions. V'nakei, and God cleans us off. That's the word kaper, means also to clean. She'ein ha'avon tofes makom, the sins that we did do not take up any place at all. And this is called ke'eres b'levanon. Then it's called like a like a young cedar tree in Lebanon. Remember we said a young cedar tree, that you put something, you bend it down, you put something physical on it. In this case, the commandments that we do. And here he's saying that even more, it's like the sins that we do, and it throws them up, it transforms them. How does it transform them? How? Because what does God really want from us? What does he really want? God really wants our heart, our sincerity. He wants us to appreciate how much we love him. And that'll awaken our love to the Creator. Love. Something incredibly, intensely positive and real. And that love will spread out through the whole entire world, that people will appreciate every creation of God. That's supposed to be the goal. It says that's the idea of Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur, it says that it even erases the blemishes, the if you want to call it the dirt made by the negative commandments, by transgressing the negative commandments. Malbin avonotehem, that it cleans, it, how do you say it? It whitens the sins of the Jewish people. Or so whitens. So in other words, it comes out that because of these, what do sins come from? Sins come from acting naturally. Sins come from following your urges. People do sins because they feel good, right? Usually. People do sins because they enjoy it in some way or some perverted way or whatever. But nevertheless, people do sins because they feel good. They just do what they want to. But some people make a mistake and think that, okay, the way to get rid of the good feeling of sins is by suffering. My desire for pleasure, that's what got me into trouble. I'm not going to have any pleasure. So those are all these Eastern religions. They sit on nails and there was self-flagellations or whatever they call. Okay, that's an idea, but it's not a true idea. The way to negate the pleasures, the past pleasures of the world is, yes, true. In the beginning, true, to regret them, to feel terrible remorse, to feel terrible pain. But the idea of it is to connect to the source of life. And life is a totally different type of pleasure. Life is a different type of pleasure, right? Let's say just a simple thing. A person nowadays, they have these people that are, the Hamas took them into captivity. When they get out of captivity, their families are tremendously happy. What type of happiness is that? What type of happiness is it? It's a happiness of what? Where does it come from? Where does happiness come from? Right? When they get out, they're happy. It's happiness of life. It's life. It's a that type of happiness multiplied 1,000,000 times. That's the type of happiness that a person feels when he feels God. That's why the holidays were happy. You went to the Holy Temple, you felt a happiness that God is creating me. You felt the happiness of life. It says, therefore, what can bring you to this type of happiness that you want to feel life is if, God forbid, a person made mistakes and he realized he made mistakes because he's going in the wrong direction, so he changes direction. This is a tremendous novelty that a person will change his nature. So therefore, we ask for God, Salach lanu, God, forgive us, Machal lanu, wipe out our sins. Hainu, shehu kamo derech mashas. This is like a person that he requests from his friend, Shalo Yir goes, don't get mad at me, owe it anymore. But Yasim Ahavasa Allah, remember, put your love, replace the hatred with love. Let's say two good friends, and one of them cheats on the other guy, does all sorts of terrible things, and he lies and he steals his house and he makes a bad reputation for the person, right? And then one day he comes up to him and says, listen, I know I did bad things. I'm asking you to forgive me. I've done everything I can possibly do. I went on television, I said I made mistakes, I lied and this. And so I won't get punished anymore, right? I mean, you don't hate me. People realize that I was a liar and I was a cheater, but I miss that love that we had and that friendship that we had. Please be my friend again. Be my friend. So the person will say, listen, do me a favor. Just keep away from me. I don't want to have anything to do with you. You made a lot of trouble for me. I don't want to. He says, yes, I know. He said, okay, I forgive you. All right, now leave me alone. He says, that's not what I want. I want more than that. Remember, we were friends. We were really good friends. Something happened to me. I went crazy. I don't know why I did it, but I'm never going to do it again. Look in my eyes. You'll see I'm telling the truth. That's what it means. It's like you're asking God, okay, God, you realize we were good friends. You create me, you love me, I'm one of your people, and I went against you. I went against you. Now I'm asking you, please, let's have that love, that friendship we had before. Hainu, by means of we say, Asham nuchatanu, we sinned, we transgressed, al chait, mashpilim et atzmeinu, and we humble ourselves, umafarsamim achet, and we advertise what we did that was bad, umodim, and we admit, I admit that I'm disgusting and I'm very low. By means of this, this pushes down our separateness from God. Sitra achra is another word for false egotism. Sitra achra literally means the other side. The others, other than what? Other than the other side. Other than God. God is creating everything. All there is God. God is infinitely good. God is infinitely alive. God is infinitely real, infinitely true. But God creates us. And we feel that we're separate from God. So if you're separate from God, it means that you're separate from reality and you're separate from truth. And you're separate from your your true identity, and you're separated from everything. But if you feel good, that's called a sitra achra. Sitra achra is anything that does not reveal God. And the Tanya explains that even if you do Torah and the commandments, but you do it for yourself, that's called sitra achra. You do it in order to go to heaven, right? That's called the sitra achra. Your deeds are okay, but the intentions are. So therefore, when a person realizes, wow, I thought I was God. I thought I was God. And I made a mistake. I did terrible things. When a person admits that and he admits it to himself and he humbles himself, automatically this that a person changes his nature. He changes, and that's the whole reason why God created the world. That's why God created nature. That's why God gave us all these impulses to do bad things. So that we'll defy them. Or if we give into them, that will transform them. And when we do this, so God replies, God reacts. Very essential message of Hasidic Judaism. Very essential message of the Baal Shem Tov. God reacts to what we do. And he reacts immediately. He might not react the way that we expect, but he automatically respects. Moses prayed 515 prayers to get into the land of Israel, and God did not answer his prayers. So God answered his prayers, don't worry. Not at the time Moses wanted to, not in the way. Same thing with us. Every good deed that we do, that everybody does, God never remains a debtor. You do something good, God always pays. Jew, not Jew. But when especially God expects more from the Jews, when a Jew does what God wants, and even more when he defies himself, eskafia sitra achra, it says, when a person changes, pushes down, controls, defies his feeling of separateness, his sitra achra, then that really has an effect on God, even more than doing the positive commandments. That's why you can never tell. A person could be a big tzaddik and he can sit and learn Torah and does all the commandments and he gives speeches to millions of people and he makes them all do tshuva, right? And amazing. It could be that one of those people that actually does tshuva, that actually changes himself, is infinitely higher than that rabbi. Because the rabbi is not changing his nature. The rabbi, he likes to talk and he's getting all this popularity and he's very successful. And he's getting success, and there's more success, and he's living for success, and he's achieving success, and he's teaching success, and he's an example of success and success and success. And this person that he convinces, he says, wow, I'm giving up all my success. I'm going to be a loser. I'm going to lose everything I have. And just in order, all my pleasures, all my this, just in order to be connected to the Creator. Oh, God said, that's what I was looking for. That's what I was looking for. A person that he went against his own nature. This is an incredible novelty that only human beings can do. Animals can't change their nature. Even the angels can't change their nature. That's much, much greater, infinitely so, than this great rabbi that stands and he's doing positive things, right? We said the positive commandments, that has an effect, but not as much as refraining from the negative commandments, changing your nature. It says, when a person goes against his nature, that's what causes God's glory to spread out above in all the worlds. Then God will have mercy on us. And God will reveal this inner love on us from God's inner will. Then the sins that we did and the transgressions, they don't separate anymore. Because the sins only separate between us and between our God, namely this godliness which is inside of us, but it's there. But in God's inner will, nothing can ever really separate. By God, our sins are nothing. In other words, God's love for us is infinite. That's what it means. Shabbaton. That's what they always say. That these are the days of judgment, and the Rosh Hashanah is the day of judgment, and the days of awe, and the days of I did say God's severity, and everybody passes in front of God, and God decides who's going to live and who's going to. So that's all true. God is the great judge. This is the judgment day, the great judgment day, and God judges us on the Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. He really judges us who's going to survive and who's going to not. It's true. God is the judge, and it's severe. But you have to remember, the judge is our Father. Our Father. You look up at the judge and say, "Wow, it's my dad." And the judge says, "It's my father." And then the judge says, "Okay, plaintiff. Okay, my son." And no one complains. Maybe the angels complain or something. That's the whole idea of this, of why Yom Kippur is called Shabbat Shabbaton. That even regards Shabbat, which is, we said, returning face to face with God, this is higher. This is also called Shabbaton. Namely, that this is an elevation after elevation, even more. We go to the essence of God's love to us. Hagam, even though Shagam Shabbat, even though the Shabbat is also called Shabbat Shabbaton, there's places in the Torah where Shabbat, the seventh day of the week, is also called Shabbat Shabbaton, because there is what's called a lower Shabbat and an upper Shabbat in every seventh day of every week. But over there it's written Mikra Kodesh. By the other Shabbats of the week, it's called Mikra Kodesh. They're just called holy. Shenishar b'Kodesh Elov. The true inner holiness of Shabbat on every seventh day on Shabbat, the true inner holiness remains above. It's not shines here, but on Yom Kippur, it says lochem. It says Shabbat Shabbaton lochem. This revelation of the inner, infinite love of God to the Jewish people, to every single Jew individually, is lochem. It comes and is revealed to us. That's what it means, Shabbat Shabbaton hu. It comes down to us. It's something that we can't do. We just press the button by a little bit of repentance, going to synagogue, saying, "Okay, God, I did a little bit. You do the rest." Then there's revealed this tremendous light of godliness below to the source of the souls of Jews. Now, whether you feel this or not, it's up to you. But the Rebbe is explaining to us that, in fact, when in Yom Kippur it happens, and it's a very simple, a very amazing thing. Israel, I used to have a Chabad house. This is like 30 years ago. Doesn't seem that long ago, but they used to have it. And they used to invite me to all the schools to speak. And the schools, the children. And the schools, a lot of them were not religious schools. Now in that city where I opened the Chabad house, almost all the schools are religious now. Almost all the schools are, right? They're all... Anyway, back then it wasn't. There were like 2, 3 schools that were religious, and the other 6, 7 schools were not. We're talking about grade schools, and I went mostly to the grade schools. I didn't go to the junior high schools. I went to the grade schools. There were hundreds of kids, hundreds and hundreds of kids. I remember I went to one school, and I would go, first of all, what would I do? Like, let's say before Rosh Hashanah. Mainly I went before Rosh Hashanah and before Sukkot also. And I remember, and what I would do, I would play on the guitar a little bit. I play guitar, sing a couple songs, and then I would tell a story. And then I would maybe ask a couple of questions in the story, something like that, about the holiday, explain a little bit something about the holiday. And then I would sound the shofar, or before Sukkot, I would take a lulav, an etrog. So I remember there was one school, there must have been, I don't know, like 200 kids that were there. This was like elementary school, 3rd, 4th grade kids. And so I said, okay, everyone, on Rosh Hashanah, what do? We sound the shofar. Everybody said the shofar. The kids said shofar. And I said, in Sukkot, we sit in a su. The kids said sukkah. And we take a love. They're here. The kids didn't know so much already because the kids were. I said, and what do we do on Yom Kippur? The main thing of Yom Kippur is that we, right? I wanted to say tzom, fast. And all the kids said, we don't ride bicycles. To the degree, it's not that way anymore, I don't think, but it used to be, Yom Kippur was called Bicycle Day. That's the connection. Because on Yom Kippur, surprisingly, the streets are empty. The streets are empty on Yom Kippur. Even though there is a law, you're not supposed to drive on Yom Kippur, but I don't know if they really enforce it. The streets are empty. Even non-religious people, they don't drive. 99% of them, non-religious people, they don't drive on Yom Kippur. They stay at home. A lot of them fast. A lot of them are ashamed that they are fast. That's the way it used to be. All the kids said, it's the holiday, bicycle day. Bicycle day. What does it mean, bicycle day? In other words, the streets are empty. Why are they empty? Because everybody feels something's going on. Everyone feels something is going on. And so they don't drive their cars that day. But they're not religious Jews. But they feel that something is happening. And the way I always explained it is, every Jew feels that God is forgiving them on that day. And it's like, I can't spit in God's face on the day that he's forgiving me, even though they don't consciously understand this. But it's a fact. You can feel it. It's in the air. There's something Yom Kippur. And it could be they'll sit home and who knows, watch television or do things that are not, maybe they'll sit home and eat, but they don't drive. They don't want to advertise it. And like I say, nowadays in Israel, it's changing in a second. The whole thing is turning over, especially the soldiers. Especially the soldiers that are fighting in Gaza. They've realized that the government basically has abandoned them. And there's big leftists in the Israeli government that are saying that, we're a conquering nation, that we're the aggressors, really, Jews. And that's not ignoring the fact that there's also Arabs sitting in the Knesset. According to Zionist law, an Arab can be the Rosh Memshali, can be the prime minister. There's no Jewish identity. The whole thing is confused. It's changing, but it's not changing fast enough. I mean, if you ask me, in the government. And now all of a sudden, the people, hundreds, thousands of Jews are starting to wake up. What we're doing? Why did we leave Judaism? What is the alternative? The Hamas is the alternative. And everybody in the whole world, they favor the Hamas over the Jews. Even the biggest leftist Jews are waking up to say, listen, we made a mistake. We made a big mistake. I heard one speak on I don't want to get into this too much, but I heard one person, his name was Eli Goldschmidt or something. He was a Knesset member for the left, for the far left in Israel. The far left is like anti-religion and anti-Jewish identity and anti-holy and anti-chosen people. That's the worst thing in the world. The people. And he said that I was wrong. He said we were wrong. Our whole idea that the Jewish people aren't special is wrong. He said, and even more, after World War II, so we made peace with the Germans. The Jews can live in Germany. There's no anti-Semitism. He said, but the Jews that came from Iraq and from Morocco and from Iran, they tried to tell us that you can't make peace with these people. You can't make peace with them. And we thought that we Ashkenazic Jews were superior. Who are these Sephardic Jews? What they did? Chachachim, whatever they're called. We're going to listen to them. And now I realize that they were right and we were wrong. We were totally wrong. And our egotism led us to this situation that we're in now. And there's still leftist Jews that are screaming that we have to, they told out of Israel, right? But the point of the matter that I'm trying to say is, I really got off the topic. I'm trying to say, on Yom Kippur, something shines. Even these big leftist Jews, something shines. And unless they make a big effort, they fast on Yom Kippur, they don't drive on Yom Kippur, they do something. Because Yom Kippur, something is shining on that day, something really good and pure that erases all mistakes we made in the past. And here we're saying it comes from the Makor, the source of the Jewish souls is revealed in this world. Okay, now let us go to the second class here.